Think about the last time you booked a flight. Did it feel like a deal? Or did it feel like you were being slowly nickel and dimed until the cheap ticket wasn't actually cheap anymore? Here's the thing, budget air travel as we know it might be dying. And no, this isn't doom-scrolling clickbait. The bankruptcies, the pilot shortages, the aircraft crisis, and the vanishing competition all point in the same direction. So today, we're going to talk about how flying got cheap, why it worked for decades, and why that era might be coming to a very turbulent end. Let's start at the beginning. Before 1978, flying in the United States was basically a luxury. The government, through an agency called the Civil Aeronautics Board, controlled which airlines could fly which routes, and more importantly, how much they could charge. Airlines competed on service, meals, and legroom, never on price, because price was fixed. Then came the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, signed by President Jimmy Carter. Suddenly, the rules changed. Airlines could fly wherever they wanted, charge whatever the market would bear, and compete head-to-head. It was chaos at first. A wave of airlines went bankrupt almost immediately, but out of that chaos came something genuinely new: the low-cost carrier. Southwest Airlines was the blueprint. They figured out that if you stripped out all the extras, assigned seats, in-flight meals, multiple aircraft types, you could operate at a fraction of the cost of a legacy airline. One type of aircraft, fast turnarounds, no frills, just get from A to B cheap. It was boring, it was brilliant, and it worked. It worked so well that airlines all over the world copied the model. In Europe, Ryanair and EasyJet turned it into something even more aggressive. Ryanair, under CEO Michael O'Leary, became famous for charging for everything that wasn't nailed down. Carry-on bags, seat selection, printing your boarding pass. At one point, O'Leary even joked about charging passengers to use the bathroom. He was joking, probably, but fares dropped to levels that once seemed impossible. Flights across Europe for less than the price of a pizza. Transatlantic deals that made road trips look expensive. For millions of people, flying stopped being a special occasion and became just another option. So what went wrong? The ultra-low-cost model always relied on one critical assumption: that passengers would accept being treated like cargo, as long as the base fare was low enough, and for a long time they absolutely did. But the math only works when every single variable goes right. Fuel stays manageable, planes are available, pilots are plentiful, airports play ball, and passengers keep filling those seats. One by one, those variables have started going wrong at the same time. Let's talk about the pilot shortage, because this one is massive and not enough people are talking about it. Training a commercial pilot takes years and costs tens of thousands of dollars. When COVID hit, thousands of pilots either retired early, took buyouts, or simply left the industry. When travel came roaring back in 2022 and 2023, airlines found themselves severely short-staffed, not a little short, significantly short. And when pilots are scarce, they have leverage. Salaries went up dramatically across the industry. That's great news for pilots, but it's a direct hit to the cost structure of budget carriers who were built on the assumption that they could keep operating costs ruthlessly low. If you're loving this kind of behind-the-scenes look at aviation, drop a like. It genuinely helps the channel grow. And subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Then there's the aircraft problem. You cannot run an airline without planes, and right now planes are genuinely hard to get. Boeing has been dealing with well-documented production and quality control issues with its 737 MAX family. Airbus has had its own serious delivery delays. Aircraft that airlines ordered years ago are arriving late, or not at all. Without enough planes, you can't add capacity. Without capacity, there's no pressure to bring prices down. And then came the moment that said everything. Spirit Airlines filed for bankruptcy in November 2024. Let me say that again. Spirit Airlines. the airline that practically defined ultra-low-cost travel in America. The airline with the bright yellow planes that passengers either loved or loved to hate. Bankrupt. Spirit had been searching for a lifeline for years. In early 2022, they announced a merger with Frontier Airlines. But while that deal was still being negotiated, JetBlue stepped in with a competing offer, and Spirit's board ultimately chose JetBlue. Then, the Department of Justice sued to block the JetBlue acquisition on antitrust grounds, and a federal judge sided with the DOJ in January 2024. The merger was dead. And Spirit, with no backup plan and a mountain of debt, had nowhere left to turn. Without a merger partner and unable to sustain profitability, Spirit filed for Chapter 11. It was one of the loudest warning signals yet that the ultra-low-cost model, at least in its most extreme form, is under enormous pressure. Here's what makes Spirit's story even wilder. They were charging for everything. Bags, seat selection, snacks, carry-ons, the whole strategy of unbundling, offering a rock-bottom base fare and then charging separately for every add-on imaginable, was supposed to be their salvation. It wasn't enough. And this brings up an uncomfortable truth about the hidden fee era. When airlines started charging for checked bags, American Airlines was the first major US carrier to do it back in 2008. It was framed as a way to keep base fares low. In reality, it became a massive revenue stream that had nothing to do with keeping fares low. US airlines now generate billions of dollars a year in baggage and ancillary fees. Billions. The ticket price you see on a search engine is increasingly just the opening bid. By the time you add a bag, choose an actual seat and grab something to eat, the math looks very different from that headline number that caught your eye. Travelers are starting to notice. There's a growing frustration, especially among frequent flyers, that the promise of cheap travel has quietly been replaced by cheap-looking prices that aren't actually cheap once you add everything up. So, where does this leave us? Are we heading back to the days of aviation as a luxury reserved for the wealthy? Not exactly, not overnight anyway. There are still deals to be found if you're flexible. Ryanair is still operating aggressively across Europe. Budget options exist, but the floor on airfare, that I can't believe it's this cheap floor, is rising, and it might keep rising. Consolidation is a major reason why. In the United States, the industry is now dominated by a handful of mega carriers. When there are fewer competitors fighting for your seat, there is simply less pressure to keep prices down. And when you factor in the growing cost of climate compliance, sustainable aviation fuels, emission standards, carbon requirements, you add another layer of cost pressure that didn't exist a decade ago. The conditions that made ultra-cheap flying possible, abundant pilots, plentiful aircraft, low fuel costs, and hyper-competitive markets, are all under strain simultaneously. That's not a coincidence. It's a system correcting itself after years of running on razor-thin margins. Tell me in the comments, do you think budget air travel is genuinely dying, or do you think the industry will find a new way to bring prices back down? I'm seriously curious what you think. Aviation has survived deregulation, oil shocks, terrorist attacks, and a global pandemic. It's one of the most resilient industries on the planet, but resilience doesn't mean nothing changes. It means the industry adapts. And sometimes that adaptation comes at a cost that ends up on your ticket. The era of dirt-cheap flying isn't completely over, but the golden age, it may have already passed. And most people didn't notice until the fares started climbing. If this video made you think, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you on the next one.